What's up, my dudes? In this video I'm teaching you all about cinnamon, specifically the cinnamon bark. This can be applied to the cinnamon powder as well, but this is the main one I'm going to focus on. So the main thing you can do with a cinnamon stick is, if you have just the stick itself or the bark, whichever way you want to call it, you can use this to write any sort of affirmations or anything that you want on it. So if you want to attract any sort of money, if you want anything to be like evenly dispersed, so anything you want to sort of release or just sort of put out into the environments, whether that be for people or your business or whatever, or any sort of speed. So I don't really know a symbol for speed. I guess I can draw a Sonic head or something, but anything that relates to those three, any sort of money, outreach, or any sort of speed, that's a good thing that you can use with this cinnamon. And then if you want to, as you can see, there is a hole in between. What you can do is you can either wrap a petition, which is just a piece of paper with your specific goals or whatever you're writing onto it. You can place that inside of it, and then you can have that be surrounded in the effects that you want, or you could have the paper surround the cinnamon, and this can be more of the internal effect for that. If you would like to, you could also use these in any sort of money bowl. So this is a money bowl that I made a video for, I believe like last week or something. But as you can see, there's cinnamon sticks and there's enchanted herbs inside of this and out, and it's just coated in a bit of sugar and a bit of money oil and other stuff. But that's a good way to keep a bit of cinnamon into your practice. This is good for any sort of stability and any sort of abundance. If you have the powder, that's more of the fast-paced and more of the faster energy, but these sticks are more of the grounding and more of the sustainable energy for that. Another thing you can do with the cinnamon is you can place it into any sort of money bag or any sort of mojo bag. This is a specific mojo bag that I'm making for a client, but this is going to attract any sort of wealth, any sort of high income, anything that's related to money. This will sort of enhance that effect. And then if you're creating this for yourself, you could also place specific effects into your bag or into your pouch, and then that will just help boost your effects that way. But that's another way that you can go about using cinnamon in your practice. Another way of using cinnamon in your practice is to create any sort of oils or any sort of tinctures. This is a crown of success oil. As you can see, there's bits of the bark in there, and there's also little bits of the powder floating around in this. This is good for any sort of overcoming obstacles. That's basically what this is for. So if you wanted to boost your effects or overcome any sort of obstacles, this is crown of success oil, and this is on my channel. So another way of using your cinnamon, like I said, is you can wrap your affirmations around a cinnamon stick. What you want to do is, if you're doing it for something that's outward, you want to be rolling it up into the paper. If it's for something that's for you, maybe you want to ground yourself or anything like that, you would fold it towards you like this. But this is a different way that you can go about doing this. You don't even need to bind this. You can just have it like this. And then what you can do is you can take your cleansed dish, which all of you should have, and then you can place it down into there. And if you want to, you can do a binding over this, so any sort of twine or anything that you have. But what you can do over this is you can add a bit of sugar. It doesn't need to be necessarily the white sugar, it can be the ground sugar or anything. But just placing this over like your spell, that's way too much, especially for an example. But placing sugar over your spell or your affirmation like this will not only enhance whatever you're working with, but it will also help sweeten it. Because if you have an abundance of money or anything that's attracted to you from outside sources, you could come into contact with some bad people, so you don't want to do that. You could also add a protection black salt if you don't want to use sugar. Sugar is more of the more passive, like sweeten up your goals and your outcomes, and protection salt is more of setting the barrier and not letting anything else pass over that. But yeah, that's a few different ways that you can go about using cinnamon in your practice. If you'd like to know more about witchcraft or witchcraft related content, just subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to know more hoodoo techniques or different ways that you can go about creating different effects into your life, just subscribe to my channel. Have a good day, night, life. Enjoy yourself and be happy.